Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all having a good week and following the 3H's of the channel. And in this video, it's all from Canada and it's about to get wild. So, pull up a stump, strap in, and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. This is something pretty terrifying that happened to me in 2021. So I live in Labrador, Canada, which is one of the most remote, unpopulated areas of North America. It's an area larger than Germany, but with less than 30,000 people living in it. I got devastating news that my grandmother had passed away. I was very close to her, and I wasn't able to fly to Newfoundland for her funeral because I didn't meet certain restrictions that were on at the time. I have to drive out there by myself 2,000 kilometers across the Trans-Labrador Highway. And if you're wondering, 2,000 kilometers is about 1,250 miles. It's one of the most remote, rarely traveled, quote, major roads in North America. Not shitting you, it's so remote that you'd probably be the only human being within 100 kilometers for most of the journey, and you could go hours and hours without seeing another car or any signs of life. So it's roughly 2 a.m. I can barely keep my eyes open. I promise myself that I'll stop and sleep at the nearest truck stop, which up here are just tiny little pullovers. There's no buildings or lights or signs of anything. Eventually, I do get to one. I pull in. It's on the edge of a steep decline with a small stream that's at the bottom. I notice that there's a motorcycle parked there. It's standing up, and there's not a single person in sight. I'm thinking, this is odd, but maybe the owner is camping out in the woods, so I just leave it be. It's not my problem. Naturally, I am paranoid, so I sleep with my doors locked and my windows covered and the whole 9 yards. I wake up at 10 o'clock the next morning. The motorcycle is still there, and there's still no sign of anybody. I step outside to do my business and get a better look over the decline at the stream in the daylight. There's a full pair of clothes and a motorcycle helmet just scattered all over the edge of the stream. I also notice a cooler that's been open and flung around with its contents. There's drinks and food that are tossed around everywhere. Curiosity gets the best of me, and I carefully scale down the steep decline and look around. The stream passes under the road through a large culvert, which is only just a few feet from the scene. I smell a weird, rusty smell. It's a stench coming from the culvert. I'm already uneasy after reading scary stories on the internet just before my trip. I had no plans to ever enter the culvert, but again, curiosity got the best of me. I figure, okay, I'm just going to go by the entrance, whip out my phone flashlight, peek inside, nothing more. The sound of the stream in the middle culvert is echoing and reverberating really loudly as I approach. I'm fully expecting to see a dead body in there, probably the motorcyclist who fell in. But I get to the entrance, I shine my light in, and I shit you not, standing in there, hunched over, was this thing that looked like a cross between a bear and a gorilla, with a distinct humanoid shape, with its mouth wide open, its canines and eyes shining from the light of my flashlight reflecting on it. This surprises me so much that I stumble backwards away from the culvert and nearly fall over. I clamber up the steep incline on all fours. I can hear frantic sloshing of the thing in the culvert, like it's fighting against the current to try and get at me. I get back into my car and I speed off. I inform the police in the next town along the way about the motorcycle and the screwed up campsite and a potential missing person, and I describe as best I could the thing that I saw in the culvert. The police say that they'll investigate it, but I never really got any closure myself, since I continued to drive to my grandma's funeral immediately after that. Some of you may find it boring, but I'm going to try and be as descriptive as possible. I was 16 years old. I was living in British Columbia, Canada. Me and a close friend of mine decided to go camping for 4 days during spring break. We met up at my place in the early hours of the morning with all of our equipment. My friend is just about 18 and also has his N driver's license. He brings with him his dad's Lee Enfield 308 rifle. I ask my mother if I can take my 308 as well. Begrudgingly, she says yes, as the bears are beginning to wake up and they may want a food source. We take all of the gear that we think that we're going to need, such as a tent and a few other goodies, like some homemade MREs, water filters, extra ammo, that kind of stuff. We throw our gear into the back of my older friend's truck and we set off. A smooth 1-hour drive takes us out of town to some very dense forests, which continue right up to the Rockies if I remember correctly. We park his car and load out our rucksacks and grab our guns. Both of us are carrying stripper clips and a lot of ammunition as we intend to do some target shooting. We hike for a good 7 kilometers or so before we notice the first weird thing. Up until this point, everything was normal. A large tree, maybe 15 years old, has been broken at the base. What's weird is that it must have been something really big, as the base of the tree is the strongest part. There were no beavers, as the nearest lake is about 5 kilometers ahead of us, which is our camping spot. It wasn't a boulder falling down, as that area of the forest is quite flat. This weirds me out a little, but we end up shrugging it off, and my friend teases me that it could be Bigfoot. I say, yeah, whatever, man. And then we walk another kilometer. We're talking along and we stop for some lunch. By around 5 p.m. in the afternoon, we reach our campground. It was a small lake that was a decent size though. You could see all the way around it without much trouble. We notice this old abandoned cabin on the other side. It looks 1900s kind of old, super old. We set up our tent as well as a small shooting range to just kind of peg stuff with bullets and make our skills razor sharp, you know. We want to go swimming, however the water is still super cold, as all the snow had just recently melted about a month ago. We decide to walk around to the cabin straight across from us on the other side of the lake. On the way over, we see some big-ass footsteps in the mud, and we're thinking, alright, that's definitely not a bear. We both get a little freaked out by this, and consider moving our tent. We decide not to, because, we both have high-powered rifles, and we're both teenagers, kind of full of testosterone. We figure with our guns that we can pretty much stop anything dead in its tracks, and hopefully one hit. The cabin's door is since long gone. There's dust all over the floor, but there's footprints in the dust. We get a little spooked, and we leave the cabin immediately and walk back to our camp. We inspect our camp to make sure that nothing was different, nothing had been messed with. We're both kind of paranoid now. We decide to do some target shooting around 7 p.m. to maybe ward anything that's curious off with the loud noises. Between us, we probably unload a good 25 bullets. RIP to the cans that are downrange. So come 8 p.m., we are getting ready for bed as the sun has just dipped below the horizon. We both end up going to sleep, feeling a little better after expelling some rounds from our rifles. Around 11 p.m., I wake up to a normal night. Everything is normal. The forest sounds around me, the bugs, everything is normal. There's none of that silent forest stuff that happens when there's like a super scary predator around. Everything is normal. So I get out. I shine a flashlight around and I send a raccoon diving for cover. While scanning over the lake though, I see something. I come back to it, and I see that I am looking at two sets of eyes who are looking right back at me. The eyes reflect from the light. I can't see a torso though. Immediately, I go wake up my friend. He ends up yelling hello across the lake, but the eyes keep staring, unblinking. My friend emerges, carrying his weapon and ammo. We start making loud noises to try and ward this thing off, or make it go away, at least for the night. But it won't leave. So I prop my flashlight on a rock to face the set of eyes. We both take aim for just below the eyes for a body shot and fire. Both of our rifles explode to life, and we hear that distinct thwap noise as they strike home. Now, the yell or scream that followed still haunts my dreams, and I can't even begin to describe how it sounded, but it was loud, and I felt it in my chest all the way across the lake. We both immediately make follow-up shots. We hear one of our bullets hit a tree, but the other one makes the same thwap noise as before. That's 3 rounds that hit whatever this thing is, and we're thinking, did we kill it? There's no more noise until 2 a.m., and then a large snapping noise is heard about 400 meters away, probably behind the cabin. We both fire off 2 warning shots into the woods, and then nothing else is heard for the rest of the evening. As soon as the sun rises, at around 6:30, we pack our stuff up. We go across the lake before leaving to just kind of inspect the area. Very soon after getting across the lake do we realize that whatever was looking at us was inside the cabin, looking at us from the window. We go inside, our weapons raised. There's blood right below the front window. It's dried, and there's no trail, so we assume it's no use. There's a large hole in the wall behind the window. That must have been the round that was missed. We don't go back to see if another tree has fallen. On the hike back, though, we had a rather large boulder land less than 5 feet in front of us. We hip-fired in its direction. We aren't disturbed again, and we make it back to the truck okay. But there's a large dent in the right door of the truck. There's also evidence of something making a very large attempt at entering the vehicle. I drive home, and we tell our parents, but there's not a whole lot that can be done. I don't know if it was a Bigfoot or if it was something else. I guess, looking back, it wasn't bothering us, but we were just so scared. I don't go back to those woods anymore, as you can imagine, and I do not go camping in BC alone. So this didn't happen to me, but it happened to one of my relatives, and it all happened in the Northwest Territories in Canada in sometime in the early 2000s, I think 2002. The closest town was around 30 miles away, and no, I don't know what town it was, but I will tell the story from his point of view and how he would tell it. So I was 19. My dad tells me that my granddad passed away, and after a while, we figure out that he left me his old cabin. I thought this was really weird because we never really talked. We barely knew each other, but we figured it's because that me and him were the only real outdoorsy people in the family. I never actually went there, but my granddad lived there for a few years apparently. He was a super off-grid guy, absolutely hated and despised the government and loved the wilderness, some hardcore survivor type stuff. He had a lot of guns and served in Korea and loved shooting. He left a note with the will for me about the cabin, with the location, etc. It surprises me when I go on Google Maps to check out the cabin to see if I can see it, but there's no path visible to this cabin, but it is in a big-ass field. My dad convinces me to head out there. He tells me that it should be fun, and it would be great to do in remembrance of his dad. So I figure I'll take some friends, since it's not that far from where I live, only a few hours by car. So I finally get to heading out there with two buddies, Carter and Jay. Now, I'm not the richest person, so I just bring an old-ass Lee Enfield that my granddad gave me for my first gun. Now Jay is kind of the weird guy in the group. For some reason, he shows up dressed as what looks to be something from Mao's China, and we all make fun of him, calling it a Halloween cosplay, but, he's still a good guy. Carter is much more normal, and just brings an old 308 bolt action. So we drive for about 3 hours from starting destination before we reach the old road to head to the cabin. I can hardly see because it's nighttime and it's snowing. The only lights we have are the headlights, the stars, and there's no moon, nothing else. We finish the drive down this old dirt road, and the cabin gets illuminated by the headlights. The place is actually way bigger than I figured it would be. Think like a 2-story house, but it's a cabin, and it's all made out of wood. I figured that it was just an older picture that I had, and that Granddad did some heavy renovations or something. So we offload all of our stuff and head inside. There's no power, just a few candles. We brought a bunch of lights and a generator in the back of the truck, so we leave the generator outside, gas it up, and start hooking up the lights. We get inside of the house and done in about 20 minutes, and we decide that that's enough for the night. There's only 2 bedrooms. Carter decides to sleep on the couch in the front room. We all decide to head to bed. I take the room that used to be my granddad's, while Jay goes to the guest room. The room is pretty dusty, but it's pretty comfy. I set up all my stuff inside and put my old reliable Enfield up against the nightstand and head to bed. I switch off the lights and I fall asleep. I wake up to Jay, still in his weird cosplay costume gear in my room, shaking my shoulder. I wake up thinking, man, what the hell do you want? He says, bro, I just heard something crunching in the snow, and the generator went off. I tell him that it's probably just a coincidence, but in my head, I'm thinking, oh shit, there's totally a person out there. I think to myself that it's probably somebody just screwing with us, or maybe a homeless person trying to get us to leave so he can sleep in the cabin. I ask him if he saw anything out the window since we placed the generator right outside of his window. He says, no, screw that, I'm not looking out my window when there's something out there. I call him a dumbass, and I tell him to come outside and turn the generator back on with me. He says, I'm not going out there, I'll wait till morning. I call him a pussy and say that I'll get Carter. I grab my rifle and my flashlight and head down to the living room to get Carter. Jay follows, since his room is also downstairs. On my way down the stairs, I can swear that I hear something outside, crunching in the snow. I stop going down. I turn my flashlight off and sit still. Jay does the same. It's dead quiet, completely quiet. No wind or buzzing, nothing. I'm starting to get freaked out. I sit there for another 3 or 4 minutes in the silence before I swear that I hear a hoop outside. Not right outside, but way off in the distance. Jay whispers, did you hear that too? I'm shitting my pants, but I respond, yeah, I did. I hear something start moving downstairs, and I nearly have a heart attack. I turn my light back on while raising my rifle. Carter's standing there, aiming his rifle out the window. He looks up at me and does the neck cut thing to say, stop what you're doing. I turn off my light. My eyes are beginning to adjust to see shapes. I can see Carter staring down his rifle sights at the window. A few minutes or so go by before I can see him lower his gun. I turn my light back on. He says, there's someone out there, man. I say, what did you just say? He says I couldn't sleep, so I've been watching movies when the generator turned off. I seen someone go by the window. I say, someone. He says, yeah, they were on 2 feet, I'm pretty sure. It looked in, and its eyes were at the top of the window. He didn't realize this at the time, but the window was higher off the ground due to the foundation, so whatever it was would have to be 8 to 9 feet to be at the top of the window. I say, all right, so are we turning the generator back on, or are we just going to go back to bed? And I try to explain that if there's someone out there, we should probably tell them to F off or something. All of us keep making up excuses not to go out. I think, fine, I'll do it myself. They try to tell me not to go out and that they're serious. All of us are freaked out. I ignore them and I head for the door. I go to open it. Suddenly, I'm terrified. I literally can't move. I do my best to break through whatever trance I'm in, and I bust that door open. I scan with the rifle and light for about a second before I see something moving in the woods. Now, you have to understand that there was a solid 250 feet of field, and I had one of those spotlight things, and all it did was illuminate the tree line, and I saw it from 250 feet against the trees and the snow. It was pitch black, not like a dark gray, not just dark, like the whole tree line into the abyss. You know that paint that is like void black or something, so dark it stands out even against other blacks. It was like that. The thing stops, and I see it crank its head toward me. I raise my rifle to it. I have a scope. I look through the scope. My heart drops. This thing is moving toward me and has probably already crossed 75 feet. I fire. The thing stops dead in its tracks. I can see it way better now. It's still void black, but I can see that it has some kind of weird fur. Its eyes are yellowish from what I could see. It looks like if Bigfoot got starved out in a Siberian gulag. It's literally ape-like, but it's super skinny, and it's like 8 feet tall. The thing looks back at me, and doesn't let out a yell. It's like a shriek, just piercing. I can feel my ears ring. My entire body freezes. This thing starts running toward me. It's on all fours, and I'm trying to pull the bolt back, and I, for some reason, can't do it. And then, the next part that happened, looking back, is kind of funny, but in the moment, it was terrifying. Jay comes flying out the door with his weird uniform still on and produces a Glock from his waist. He puts easily 10 shots down range. I can see this thing trip in the snow and roll. Carter is firing from the window with the rifle. I scramble my ass back through the door. The thing shrieks again and retreats back into the forest. I yell out, "Holy effing shit, dude." Jay is checking me over since apparently I gashed my arm getting through the door. Carter is staring out the window, glaring into the woods. Jay bandages my arm, and we all sit in collective silence for 15 minutes. I decide to block all the windows with random stuff and barricade the door. We move dressers and anything else big enough to block the windows and moving the couch in front of the door. We all sit in the front room behind a flip table. About an hour passes. We hear something come up to the window beside us. We hear it move to the front door, and then it lets out this ungodly howl that scares the hell out of all of us. Then things go quiet for about 3 minutes, and then the sound of crumpling snow. We hear 2 to 3 more things go to the door, and a grunt, and then the thing starts pounding on the door. Jay stands up and fires 3 shots through the door, and that screech comes again. We all collectively decide to move upstairs to the top of the stairs. We set up there. After about 30 minutes of banging, the door stops. There's more screeching, and there's screeching off into the woods. All night long, these things circle the cabin, screeching. It's just endless. The sun starts coming up. The screeching fades into the woods, and then there's complete silence for 2 hours. I end up essentially passing out from exhaustion. Carter follows immediately after. Jay stays up. He had a whole bunch of caffeine in his system. He was making instant coffee with our hot plate. 3 hours later, we wake up. I'm not sure if what happened was a dream or not. I sit in bed for like 5 minutes. Jay knocks on the door and comes in. We talk for a while about what happened. Carter enters. He tells us that we need to get the hell out of here and get to the truck. Jay says something along the lines of, "Hey, this is supposed to be our property. We need to kill these things." I agree with Jay. Carter looks at us like we're bone dead stupid. He says these things are going to kill us if we don't leave. I remind him that we're armed. He says, "Great, give me a minute." And then he comes back a few minutes later with an HK-41. We say, "You had that and didn't use it?" He said my bag was on the couch and I really didn't want to go near the door. We decide that with our newfound firepower, we should go outside to set up some lights and maybe a trap. We set up the lights with no incident. Jay pulls out 3 bear traps, and I think, "Where did you get those?" He looks at me and says that he took them from his dad in case we went hunting. I say, "Why would we go bear hunting with no dogs or anything? This is beyond me," and he just kind of smiles. We set them up around the porch, and we decide to stay on the porch and try to get rid of these things. So we're all set up and decide to shoot some rounds into the woods. We fire 3 shots. We hear the screech from the area that I was shooting. Those things were watching us. After a few minutes of nothing happening, suddenly 4 to 5 of them start storming toward us. We open up like they're a landing craft, and this is World War II. I hit one in the chest, and it tumbles. Jay opens up with his Glock at another one that turns and runs back to where it came from. Carter shoots 2 more. One steps in a trap and pulls it 10 to 15 feet in one stride as it falls to the ground and gets lit up by me and Carter. We feel that so far this mission has been a success. I sweep the tree line with the scope. It looks clear. We approach the corpse of one of these things. Now for this, I rely on Jay and Carter's accounts of the story, as I'm nose blind and my smeller don't work. They say that the thing smells like shit. They described it as the smell of our spent ammo mixed with shit, or farts. One of them that had dropped suddenly starts twitching on the ground. We have to shoot it a few more times before the shaking stops. We debate on heading home. It's probably 5 to 6 o'clock. The sun's pretty much down. We decide to spend one more night and then go at dawn. We bunker up in the front room and we sleep in shifts. After mine, I pretty much pass out immediately, and I end up sleeping through the night. I wake up in the morning. We all pack our stuff. We leave some stuff and move some of the dressers back and leave others. We exit the door. All the bodies are gone. All 5. Just gone. The tracks from them running up to us are still there, but whatever came and got them didn't leave any. We decide to run to the truck since it's only like 50 feet from the house. All the windows are smashed. The taillights are just gone. The whole truck is dented all to shit, and one tire is flat. We think, we have to go. This is it. Carter swears but hops in and turns the truck on and puts it in drive anyways. We're driving faster than we should be on a flat tire, and we're heading through the forest. I look in my mirror, and I shit you not, there's a bunch of them running after the truck. I end up having to take the wheel while Carter and Jay are firing downrange. Some of them dropped, but I don't think they were dead. We're swerving down this shitty gravel road. They aren't quite as fast, but they're keeping up. We're all terrified. We breach the turn off and get on the highway, and we increase our speed to as fast as we can. It felt like the truck was going to explode. The things don't follow us onto the highway. A while later, we arrive into a town. We get pulled over by the one cop on the highway. Everyone freaks out and tries to hide the guns. The cop looks pissed. He says, "What the hell do you guys think you're doing driving that fast on this highway? It's icy as hell out here." I try to explain to him what just happened, but it all comes out as a blubbering mess. We expect to get arrested for being high or on some kind of drugs, but the cop gets quiet. He says, "You must know the guy who lived at the cabin, don't you?" I say, "Yeah, he was my grandpa." The cop looks back down the highway and then back at us and just says, "I'll get it dealt with. We'll clean it up. I'll give you a call when it's all done." I think, what? No ticket or anything? But we say, yes, sir." He tells us to get the hell out of his town and says that they follow scent and the cops don't want people to get freaked out by them. We agree. We drive at a more moderate speed all the way out of the province, only stopping to fix our tire and to get gas. We head back home, and after a while, meet out at our hangout spot. We discuss what happened. We retell the story from all of our points of view about 12 or 15 times. We agree to not tell many people. We split up. We head home. I open the door, announcing that I'm back. I hear my dad. He says, "I got a phone call," and he starts getting very emotional. He just said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't tell you about them. I thought that they had left that area years ago. They're migratory." I try and get him to tell me what they were, but he doesn't tell me, or maybe he doesn't know. He tells me that the government will deal with it. This is literally the first time that I have ever heard him say anything positive about the government, ever. I got the call from that same cop a few weeks later. He told me that the cabin had to be replaced. I say, "Replaced?" He tells me that they have to replace the entire cabin every few years to prevent these things from returning to the same area. He tells me that it's in the same place, but it's different now. It's only one floor, and it's pretty long. He explains that my granddad used to help deal with these things. Basically, he would keep them away from people. He gives me some specific name for what these things are, but I don't really remember what it was. I always had trouble pronouncing it. He tells me that they aren't human, that they're some kind of weird animal-like thing, and I think, well, no shit. He wishes me luck in my future endeavors. I return the wish. This was all over 20 years ago. He's told me this whole story more than once, so I hope I got it right. And he says that he's been there quite a few times since then, and at least 2 times, the whole cabin was different. So, those were pretty crazy, weren't they? If you had a favorite one, let me know which one it was down in the comments. And as usual, if you have one of your own, or you would like to support the channel, there are links in the description below. And with that, I hope you have a good week. I hope you had a good weekend. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump, and thank you for watching. Have a good one.